Alright, this is a fairly short video today. I only really continue coloring Aadyn in this one, if I recall. Aadyn is the single female character on the middle row there. She has the red hair and the green eyes and the beige blouse. I think I changed the color of it. But she's actually like the female main character of the story I'm writing. Again, I have to be careful with language on YouTube. She has resting, angry female dog face. So she generally looks disgruntled and grumpy. But then as a character, she's also can be impatient and gets irritated. So she, even in addition to being intimidating just passively, when she actually gets very angry, she can legitimately be terrifying. Insofar as, of course, she's a vampire and can lift a car and throw it at you. She is not a villain, though. She is a character who has disciplined herself and developed her patience insofar as she doesn't voice her thoughts and opinions. She has a lot of dark and mean ones, especially because she does have psychic powers. Like, she has a few vampiric gifts in addition to the super speed and super strength, right? So she can read minds, which she does a lot. She mostly just does it to avoid conflict with people or any deep, meaningful interactions with people. She also has precog, which I tend to think of as like spider senses. Unironically, as a character, she's ended up being kind of like Spider-Man in some ways. There's this if you've ever read Bram Stoker's Dracula, there's a part in the book where he's like, Dracula is climbing down the side of the mountain, and what was his name? Jonathan Harker or Harper? I can't remember. It's either Harker or Harper. Jonathan, the main guy. I'm probably forgetting his name completely. The main dude, the male main character in that, who goes insane from having spent a weekend at Dracula's, he looks out the window and he sees Dracula climbing down the side of the castle like a spider, and he's like, what the, he starts seeing like weird stuff when he's visiting. And so some of the attributes that Aadyn has, she can read minds, but she can also stick to walls and ceilings and climb around like Spider-Man. But she also has, like, her psychic abilities also give her precognition, which works very similar to like Spider-Man's spider senses, where it's like, oh, someone's about to, throw a car at you, punch the car away and save your girlfriend, right? Like that kind of, like, spider senses originally as the comic concept. This is a nerd aside from what I read eons ago. Like that ability, they didn't have filming equipment that could actually detect like how quickly a spider could move. So the filming equipment would often make it look like a spider was moving away from danger before the danger actually hit, and they're like, whoa, it had some sort of precognition power to know before he was in danger, so he moved ahead of time. And that translated into Spider-Man spider senses. Later it turns out, like, nope, they're just super fast. They're able to respond to these things, like they have a reaction time of like 1/80th of a second or something crazy. And so they're able to it looks, according to human sensory input, that they're that they're so fast it's actually precog. But there was never actually spider precognition. The power just remained in Spider-Man's kit, though, and it's a cool, nifty little power anyway. I don't really mind stuff like that. But essentially it's like Aadyn has three things. The precog is not linked to the mind reading, but she can essentially use precognition and like get a sense that something bad is about to happen. It's like a glimpse, like a short glimpse into the future. And so she's actually, of the characters, kind of the brainiest, in the sense that she has like two special powers that are mental based, like reading minds and short-term reading of the future. But then, just as an ordinary character, she's still something of a brainiac because she does just take college courses as a way to kill time. She's, a musician. She's an artist. She's at least at the book's beginning, she's taking another course in chemistry. She's like, I might go into microbiology. I don't know. We'll see. She just does it as a way to distract her mind, since she's about 2 centuries old. and she has a hard time like ordinarily connecting with people because she kind of hit this point where it was like everybody dies. So she mostly just stays with her clan. She mostly just interacts with them. She's polite and cordial when interacting with people, but she can also read minds too. So it's like if you're talking to somebody and let's say, like, she's an attractive young looking female, she can read the mind of any guy she's talking to. And it's like if they're just addressing her in their minds, she's like talking to them, and she's like, well, they're doing that thing where they're taking off my clothes with their mind. That's great. I need to terminate this conversation as quickly as possible because this is just getting awkward. It would be difficult to controlling your minds is something she thinks a lot about, like human psychology, because she's just swimming through everyone's thoughts. People have thoughts that they don't actively control. Like a thought will occur to a person, and if you've ever thought about your own thinking, it's one of those weird things where it's like sometimes a thought just comes to you and you're like, why did that happen? She's fully aware of this. She's been in everybody's minds. So when she's like, people have thoughts that just pop into their minds out of nowhere, and then they're like, she'll know also when a person's like, well, that was rude, I shouldn't be thinking that, and try to push it away. She's like, they're doing what they can to govern that wild, crazy thing called their mind and their inner thoughts. Not everyone does that, but she in and of itself, she doesn't judge. She knows that like there's what's going on in your head versus the way you act and behave, right? And a person who's actively trying to control their thoughts, control their emotions, and then also putting forward a very professional facade, right? They're trying to maintain a certain level of decorum and diplomacy when interacting with you. She's privy to all of those things. So she sees like the darkest, deepest desires and meanest, cruelest thoughts a person might passively have. And then she can see as they wrestle with those things and try to discipline themselves into becoming something better. And she sees when a person doesn't. When a person's just actively feeding their darker nature, feeding, as they would say, it's like, you have a good side and a bad side, and the one that grows is the one you feed, right? And so she gets to see all of that going on. So she can actively see good people, disciplined people. The depressing thing about it is she can also see a lot of normies, a lot of people. And this is probably where it's like my own perspectives on these things come through. Why is it that Aadyn has come to the conclusion that more people are just kind of passively rotten than they are actively trying to cultivate a good inner life, a good spirit, a good heart, and a good mind? Well, because I think that's how most people actually are. It's actually really, really hard to be good. It's easy to just go along with the flow, agree with what the popular thing is, whether you hear it on, your favorite, your crew at high school or work, your favorite, I guess, influencers now on things like TikTok and whatever else, or what you consume from your favorite corporate news outlet, right? Like whether or not those things actually are good, or if it's just what's been marketed in all the various ways these propaganda is produced. I don't think most people actively think about what is it to be good and how can I forge myself into being a better person. I think they just kind of drift along with whatever is good enough for the day, which life is hard, fair enough, right? So the spirit that actually does try to think about what is good and does try to be good, even when it's inconvenient for themselves. Aadyn sees that. And so she will silently appreciate the unsung heroes, because as is always the case, she knows that a mortal human being is not going to stick around forever. You might get a few good decades of friendship, and then you will have to say goodbye. And that's something she struggles with. That's not something she's very good at. So it has kind of made her into a little bit of a bitter vampire. She's also the youngest in the family. She's only 200, just a spring chicken, right? So she's not the youngest by far, by a huge amount, but still, technically, she's the youngest. She's also the only one that's, legacy American? You say Native American, because she was natively born here in the United States as an ordinary person, but then that means a different thing, even if the word technically is true. It doesn't mean the right thing. So she's an interesting character and something of a contentious one too. When she's forced out of her shell, she doesn't like that. But it's also It's good to exercise those muscles. Her relationship with Ethan, I haven't drawn him yet. I've just done that little sketch of him with a black eye, which was kind of as a joke, just because he is something of a klutz and troublesome on a number of fronts. But he's, for various reasons I won't go into, because they're revealed in the story, he essentially forces her out of her shell, out of her comfort zones, and into situations that leave herself and her family somewhat vulnerable. More vulnerable than she would like. And she struggles with the question of, is it worth it? You know? Because if you're a vampire, it's going to be easy enough just to kill any normal, ordinary person, provided you have ways to hide the body. So that's the long and short of it. I may go in and edit this a little bit more, and God willing, I'll remember to even record it. As I look at this, I told myself I didn't want to get way too detailed and way too invested in this image, but the more I do, I notice little anatomy issues with different characters, stuff that it's like if you had another artist looking over your shoulder, he'd be like, oh, fix that guy's elbow, right? Oh, the nose is a little off here. Of course it is, right? So, but I'm like, well, if I do that, if I just keep poking and prodding at it, it will never be good. Right? And when you understand these things will never be perfect, they're just going to be good enough. Especially if you're still somewhat, I don't know. Some of my friends tell me I'm not an amateur illustrator. I feel like an amateur illustrator. I surely do, but mostly because I'm aware of just how much I need to learn. These are just character drawings. It's not like I've tried putting them into a setting, like an illustration that's communicating a story, with full lighting and dynamic poses and perspectives and things like that, which I think about doing, but I'm just I have so many other things I'm doing right now. I also do 3D modeling. Right? Maybe I'll talk about that sometime. My 3D modeling's not super interesting though. It's mostly just interiors. Anyway, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, I'm happy to talk about any of these things, as most people are when they're daydreaming a lot about their stories, their characters, their ideas. You open up people like that and we can just ramble forever, whether you want to hear it or not. Whether it's actually nourishing or good for you. I may change the color of her shirt. It occurred to me that it's too close to her pale skin color, and that at a glance, it kind of makes her look, topless. She's not. I sometimes worry about how YouTube, because I know YouTube will also filter through, not just what you say, not just the audio recording, but then also the what's the visual elements of it too. And if it misreads something as lewd, you might get a strike for that, or however it works, however their punishment system, their social credit score works. Anyway, I hope all is well. You all take care. Thank you for sitting through this and watching. Leave any comments, questions, criticisms. Subscribe, tell your friends, tell your enemies, and take care.